Hello, everybody. This is Angel Rebo, the CEO Confident, and we are here today with Neville Joffe. Hi, Neville. How are you?
Hello, Angel. Wonderful. Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you. So for everybody that maybe doesn't remember, Neville Joffe has been for the last almost 30 years, teaching financial literacy and financial principles so that the companies become aware of the financial implications of their business decisions. And we are here today to talk about some of the principles of Neville Joffe's theme, which actually he's been explaining to executives for so many years, which is what gets measured gets managed. So Neville, welcome again here. So why do you think that getting things measured to being managed is so important today?
Angel, if you use a metaphor of a physician examining a patient who said, look, I'm not feeling well. I said, well, what do you mean you're not feeling well? I was not feeling well. Probably one of the few things a physician is going to do is take his temperature or her temperature, take blood pressure, take a look in the ears, etc., and get a reading of sorts. In the absence of measuring certain vital signs or metrics of the patient, this physician wouldn't even know which direction to take. So in a business, it's no different. We need to measure to manage, because people tend to examine numbers in isolation, and it is so dangerous. People look at revenues going up. Yeah, like, so what? What about your costs and so on? So having the right kinds of measurements, and I say the right kind of measurements, not a lot of measurements, I mean the right kinds of measurements, is so important for business health and to influence operational behavior by people who drive the profits in the business.
You touched upon a very important point, which is revenues are up and so what? But right now, the same way we can say, okay, revenues are down. So what? Does that mean that the profitability of the company has been compromised?
No, far from it. Sometimes to the contrary. Many years ago, I bought an equity position in a vertical manufacturing company that's fully integrated. That is, for those who are not familiar with the term, and we employed about 400 unionized employees. So it was a very nice sized business. The problem was that a lot of the employees were engaged in manufacturing product that was high on the revenue line on the P&L, but was sucking up resources in the company. And it wasn't the kinds of products that were the core skill of this organization. Long story short, we did some process mapping, and we went back and did some testing of utilization resources, and we cut out this particular line of business, which reduced our revenues by almost a third. But associated with that, we got rid of a lot of the associated costs. Well, guess what? Started making money. So sometimes it's important to evaluate the cost of driving certain revenues. Everyone should be aware of this, and be cognizant of the relationship between cost and sales. And everybody in the organization should know how to measure this.
Does that mean that, for instance, today, I would say most of the companies in the world are really with the revenues down compared to last year? Does that mean that if they actually took the necessary measures, they could actually still have profits and free cash flow?
Yes, and I don't want this to sound like a glib statement, because this is not necessarily true for all companies. Under the circumstances in which we find ourselves now, with COVID, there are a lot of challenges with a lot of companies, but I believe there are opportunities in certain companies that have been carrying a lot of fat, if you will, a lot of unnecessary expenses. And now's the time for people to start evaluating very carefully what their core skills are, their operating costs. A lot of people, we tend not to press a reset button and go back and evaluate interesting versus useful. A lot of stuff we do is very interesting and not necessarily useful. A lot of the numbers we generate are interesting, not necessarily useful. That's why we get into the topic of what gets measured gets managed. And sometimes we have to go back and take some very hard decisions and cut a lot of the fat. So this is a really good time to start really measuring very carefully the financial implications of certain operational behaviors and the financial implications of certain types of costs that, and I call this a deprivation test. Just cut out a certain process and see what happens. Quite often you'll find absolutely nothing.
Absolutely. And, what gets measured gets managed is actually part of your latest book, which is right now. I'm really happy I have one of them here with me. It's called, you know, the Baker's Dozen's Rules of Highly Successful Business Operators. If you can see it, we're talking about chapter 2 today, so it couldn't be more timely, right? Because you talk about 12 different principles you have been teaching to more than 20,000 business operators and C-level executives for the last 25, 30 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. And you know, in a lot of the organizations I work with a lot of multinational companies and growing entrepreneur organizations alike. And I see the same problem over and over and over again. I've experienced this in my own organizations, in my own companies. So, you know, each of the chapters is broken down to 3 parts. It's the title, which really speaks for itself. You know, what gets measured gets managed. Don't evaluate numbers in isolation. Revenues are vanity. Profits are sanity. Cash flow is reality. These are what the people who've attended my workshops have affectionately called Nevilisms. And this is what the book is really about. So there's a title of the book. There's a very quick read of a story to create context. And at the end of each chapter, as you will see here, there are a lot of questions. And questions which and these are really loaded questions. For example, do you have an incentive or compensation plan that everyone clearly understands? Never assume that people clearly understand the numbers. Are there elements of the plan controllable by all those people in the organization? People are measuring to manage, but it's very frustrating when a person's incentive plan is based on certain numbers that are used to measure performance, but they have no control over the numbers. Do you have financial transparency? Does your accounting department clearly communicate the financial results to your employees and how they may improve the numbers without fancy financial jargon? I can tell you, Angel, that I've been teaching this, as you said, for decades, and I've tested literally thousands of people, and I find the consistent results across the board, from grassroots, blue-collar workers to corporate executives, non-financial executives, that is. And I found that consistently, people are less than 40% financially literate. Can you imagine expecting people to make financial decisions based on numbers when they don't understand the financial implications? One of the themes or the framework of what I'm trying to communicate to corporate executives is that shareholders invest in a business for one reason and one reason only: to drive sustainable profits and cash flow, right? Sustainable profits and cash flow. But to do that, you need to get your employees engaged. You need to educate them, and only then can you hold them accountable.
Exactly. Bang on. So I would like to suggest that, you know, as you read this book, and everybody, you know, we're gonna make sure that people have. I mean, this is a copy which was like printed. The book is still not available for purchasing. We have only. I mean, this has been a book that has been actually made thanks to the contribution of a lot of different executives. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. We've had several hundred executives from various companies who have been kind enough to contribute to the book, and we've had some really engaging conversations about some of its content.
Exactly. So we would definitely like to have more questions from the people that is watching this interview today to actually contribute to the book if they want to do it. So we will be more than glad to do it. Is that correct, Neville?
Yes, absolutely. And if anybody wants to see some extracts of chapters or some of the questions, please email me at Neville, that's Neville, at bizwisdom.com. That's bizwisdom.com, Neville at bizwisdom.com. I'd be happy to send you a soft copy of some of the questions and or even of the chapters and get your input.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Neville, for being here with us today, and to everybody watching this interview. So thank you very much. I'm sure that you have enjoyed this conversation as much as we have, and you have a wonderful day. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.